So those are some of those people. And now I'm going to just show you a little presentation about how to make your pop-up. So it seems like some of you have done this before, which is awesome. So you can be our experts. But for those of you just starting, let me pull this out. And hopefully everyone can see this really well. All right, so we're going to start out and we're going to be using paper. You can use any kind of paper, so it could be just regular copy paper if you want, but thicker paper is much better if possible. So if you have some thicker paper, it's also called cardstock. That's really great for making pop-ups because it's just a bit stronger, and we're going to need 2 pieces of it. So even though we're going to start out with 1, you're going to need 2 pieces of that. You're also going to need some scissors and something to draw with. It can be a pencil, it could be a marker, it could be colored pencils, whatever you have that you like to use. Okay, and then we're gonna start out, and I'll do first the photo presentation, and then I'll do a live demonstration as well. So if you don't catch all of it right away, don't worry about it. And so first we're gonna be folding, and this is folding paper hamburger in the hamburger direction. And we'll fold it in half. And I like to do my creases and make sure my corners are lined up. And if you want to you can just watch this for now, and then we'll do it all together in a little bit, okay? So then I have a really nice crisp edge here, and I'm going to show you my special tool that I use for that. And then you're going to to make a basic pop-up, you're going to do 2 lines, 2 parallel lines, all right? And you draw them on the creased side. So this is the edge. The paper would open from this side. This is the creased side. You would do 2 parallel lines. This is just to make a simple pop-up. And then you take your scissors and you cut those parallel lines, only where you drew your lines. Next, you take your piece of paper and you fold up where you had cut. So you kind of like fold up this way, and then I actually flipped it and I folded the other way too to make that crease here really, really nice. And then I actually flatten it back. So I make it look like a flat, like the regular piece of paper, for how it was at the beginning. And then you open up your piece of paper, and you have this like box in here. And what you want to do is from the outside, you're going to push that box towards the inside. And then you can see I made this box here. This box right like that. And so that will be what we glue our pop-up to right here. So I also really smushed it down so that I get a nice crease and I have a nice box. So you can also make little teeny boxes. So I made little teeny lines here. I'm gonna make a little baby one. And the small ones, they won't.
Catch up.
I'm sorry, what was that, Grace?
Pause it for a second, I need to catch up.
Oh, well, actually, I was hoping you could just watch for now, and then you can make them in a bit.
Okay.
Okay. So, so I made a little teeny box too, and you can see, I'm gonna push that through. The teeny box, because I didn't go as far, it's sort of almost more in the background than the bigger box because my lines weren't as deep. It's closer to the crease. So you can make things closer to the viewer or farther away to the viewer, depending on how long your lines are. Now, I did a really crazy one here. So for this, guys, just put your stuff down for a second and just look at this one, because this is what I actually don't want you to do. What I did was I made a really long one. You can make really skinny long ones, that's fine. But see this like sort of halfway point that I made here? I went beyond that halfway point. So I went really, 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 really far with my 2 parallel lines, okay? And let's just see what happens when I do that. So I folded it the normal way, and then I popped it out, and look at this cool, huge pop-up that I made. But then when I go to close my pop-up, it's sticking out. So see how it's like sticking out of the side? So if you go beyond the halfway point, you will end up with one that sticks out, which isn't the end of the world, but just be aware of that. So personally, I don't do that. Nope, not gonna do that. So then next, once we get to that point and you have your boxes, you're going to be taking your second piece of paper and making what you're going to be popping up, what will pop up. And you're going to want to be coloring that in and cutting it out. We'll go over that in the live demonstration too. And eventually you're going to be gluing them to those boxes. But before you glue them, it's good to sort of like lay out what you want where. So like I like to make decisions before I glue. And then you have to work on this part back here. Does anybody know what this is called back here? Anybody know what that's called?
That's the background.
That's the background. Ding, ding, ding. Genius. All right. Does anybody know what this part is down here? What's the closer part to you?
The foreground.
The foreground. Yes, yes. Excellent. So you're going to be working on your backgrounds and your foregrounds, and maybe, and then I highly encourage that you color in as much as you want, as much as you can, because it really makes everything pop more if you color everything in. And I think you should do the backgrounds and the foregrounds before you glue in your other pieces, because it's really hard to work around them once you've already glued them in. And so if you want to write a letter, which I hope will also be writing a letter, I would probably do that in the foreground. And you can see I started coloring in. Here's our background and our foreground. And once you're all done, I didn't finish this demo, but once you're all done, you're going to use a glue stick, and you will put a little bit of glue. Actually, I don't recommend doing it this way. I'll show you the better way in my live demo. But you put a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here, and that's how you attach the pieces that will actually pop up. But if you can imagine, if you attach this first, it'd be really hard to draw behind it. So that's why I recommend attaching your pieces at the end. And once you're all finished, which obviously this one isn't finished, but once you are finished, you can then take another piece of paper and fold that in half. And then you can actually glue your whole piece into another piece of paper, and it just looks a little bit nicer. So if you have like another piece of cardstock, you can put that as a cover for your pop-up. Okay, so that's my photo demonstration. And what I was thinking we could do today with our pop-ups is that I've been thinking a lot about the things I love to do, but also the people that I really miss. So someone I've really missed is my very good friend, Emily. She lives a block from me, but we just haven't really been able to see each other much because of everything that's been going on. So I thought it would be really nice if you could think of someone that you haven't been able to see in a while, that maybe you're gonna either send a picture of this to, or you could even send it to them in the mail, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But is there anybody that you guys can think about that you think you might wanna make a pop-up for? Do you have someone you miss? Yeah? Go ahead, Katie.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I miss my best friend Maya. So we always go to each other's house like every week, but we haven't obviously been able to do that. So we do send each other letters.
Okay, and maybe you could do your friend coming over and hanging out with you in your pool. Is that something you would normally do together? Yeah, so I think that could work out. because it's the same thing with me. I've been able to FaceTime my friend Emily, but it's just not the same as hanging out in person. So, so you'll see, I did my demo of me in my community garden, and wishing that she were with me there. And I'm going to give that to her. Anyone else want to share before I go over and show you the live demo? Okay, we'll see what you guys make after. So here we are. I've traveled over to my desk here, and here I have some of my materials that I like to use. So I have my thick paper, my cardstock. I have some scrap paper, which this is just like copy paper in case you don't want to use your nice paper first. You want to do a practice one. Sometimes I recommend people, if they've never ever done pop-ups before, sometimes it's better to practice first with paper that you don't really care about, especially if you don't have a ton of thick paper. I have this really awesome pencil, right? I have my scissors, an eraser, I have my glue stick, and then I have both colored pencils and I have some markers. So if you're working from a pad like I am, so this is where I'm getting my cardstock from, my thick paper. You want to make sure you don't rip your paper, because it's, if possible, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you do, but I'm just going to show you how to pull out paper really quickly without ripping it, hopefully, is you have to have one hand down here, and you kind of go a little bit closer up here. Instead of ripping from down here, you go a little bit closer, oops, and then you hold down in order to avoid that getting sort of like fringy edges. I actually did get a little cut right there. So the other thing is, let's say you do have a mistake. This is a part of being an artist. You make mistakes all the time, and really I think the biggest thing is, how do you fix your mistake? So what you can do is, if you do have sort of an edge that you don't like that much, just take the whole pad and you can use it like almost as a ruler. Where's my cool pencil? And I'm gonna just cut that part off. Who needs it, right? It didn't want to be part of my pop-up. Well, I don't want you part of my pop-up edge. So I made a nice straight edge, and now I can use my scissors and I can cut that. So not the end of the world, but you try to make it as neat as possible. So I have my thick piece of paper. You guys all have your thick pieces of paper. If you want to do this at the same time, go for it. Just, anyways, and we're going to start by folding our beautiful sheet of thick paper hamburger style. And I want you to pay attention to your corners here and here. Some people, they just sort of fold and they're not paying attention to their corners, and then it just doesn't, it's not lined up as well. So I'm gonna fold like this, and what I do is I hold it with my non-dominant hand, and then I kind of gently do a gentle fold first, and then I really use my thumbnail to get a really good crease. So I'm really pushing down in order to get a really nice crease. I also have this fancy tool. So you see this fancy tool? This is what book artists use, and it's called a bone folder. And the reason it's called a bone folder is because sometimes it's made out of bone, but they also make them out of plastic. And they're really great for folding because you can get a really nice crease with them. You can also use a popsicle stick, but I just wanted to show you what a bone folder is. So I made my gorgeous, wonderful fold, and next I have to make those parallel lines. And so I think I'm going to do myself in the garden. So I'm going to have one pop up here. So 2 lines will make one pop up. And then I think I'm going to do some plants that are around me. So I'll make a little smaller one over there. And then I'll do some plants over here too, maybe my raspberry bushes, because I just love my raspberries so much. So this will make 1, 2, 3 pop-ups, because 2 lines makes a pop-up. So after I've done my parallel lines. I'm then going to cut them, and I'm only cutting what I drew for each of those. And if you guys have questions, let me know. But okay, so I cut each of my parallel lines. Next, I'm going to fold them. So I'm taking my first one and I'm folding up like so. If you want to take your fingernail, really get a good fold, or if you have a popsicle stick, you get a really good fold. And then you're going to go down. You're going to go to the other side and fold up so that that crease is like really, really amazing. And fold down. You want it flat again. And then we're going to do that for each of them. Because I'm doing 3. You can do as many as you want. I'm going to fold from the other side. Fold, fold, flatten. And I'm going to do my third one. Up, flat, up, flat. All right. And then I have everything folded. I'm going to open it up. And I have to push these boxes through. So sometimes this can be a little tricky. It's helpful if it's kind of on the table and you're gonna just push it from that side, from the outside. Sometimes you have to push the parts you want back to go back. See, now I have 3 boxes. And then what I like to do is to give it the whole piece of paper a little bit of a fold, gentle fold there, in order to make the creases more a part of the book. And so there you have it. I've got a central one, I've got a little one over here, and a little one over here. So I'm going to see next. Once you've done this, you will need to make the elements that will pop up, but you're also going to want to work on your background. So I wanted to give you guys lots of time to work. So if you could just watch this for a second, and then we'll have a work session. So I pre-did mine last night. I started it so that I wouldn't take up all of your work time. But here we have, I started my background, and I used a lot of marker to show like the different plants. But I also used colored pencil because I wanted a lighter blue for that in the background. And so it's pretty similar to the pop-up I just made. It has 3 pop-up boxes. I didn't finish my foreground, but I did make a little note to my friend. I decided you could just write it straight in your book, but you could, or in your card, but you could also do a separate piece of paper and then glue that in later. So if you can see here, I said, "Hi Emily, I've been loving going to my community garden. I wish you could come with me. I miss you. XOXOK." All right, and that will eventually glue in here. I made from a different piece of thick paper, I made my raspberry bush. Can you see my raspberry bush there? I made a plant that's gonna go over here. Thought about it later, and maybe I should have made one of Emily's so that it could be like us together, but instead I made just myself. Here I am. And as you can see, I drew myself with my hat, because I wear a hat when I'm in the garden, my sunglasses, and my mask, because I always wear my mask too. And here I've got my watering can. I haven't cut this out yet. This is the only one, so I just wanted to show you. When I cut out really complicated things, I like to use the inside of my scissors, and then I move the paper around in order to cut out my object. So I'm really moving more my paper than I am my scissors. My scissors are moving a little bit, but if I had to move just my scissor hand, it would be really difficult to get all of this cutting done. So I'm going to cut around my little version of myself. And I'm going to just leave her fingers. It's okay. We don't have to cut out every single finger. There she is. And then sometimes little scraps like this I'll throw out, but if it's a bigger scrap, I always save them because they're good for, you know, you could draw another plant and use, like that would have fit on there. So you can always use your scraps. All right, so there's that. And then we want to do the gluing. And remember I said that I actually have a better way than that earlier presentation of how to glue. So what I prefer to do now, instead of gluing right on the box, I take a scrap piece of paper and I only glue the character. So by character, I mean the thing that will pop up. So let me start with me. So I'm going to put some glue at the bottom. And then I'm going to pop this out and I'm going to glue her right there, bottom. And the reason I would say don't do what I showed you before, which is gluing the whole box, is because if you have glue over here, and then you go to close this, it's gonna like just completely stick to this bottom part. So that's why it's better to glue these pieces and then put them in rather than gluing the whole box. So now I'll do the raspberry plant. Put that in. This one doesn't want to stay popped out. And then last but not least, these flowers. And then from this side, I'm going to really smush it down, make sure it's attached. And boom, I have my pop-ups. You could draw up here too if you want. You know, you could cut. The more you color stuff, the better it's going to look. I would also recommend doing like a really cool foreground. And then if you, at the end, I'm just going to do it now to show you, you would then eventually glue in your note or write in your note. And there you have it. Now I like to do those covers if you have an extra piece of cardstock. You can see too, I made my person a little bit too big, so it's sort of sticking out here. I hope Emily doesn't mind. I don't think she will. But you know, if I had checked that out ahead of time, I could have seen, oh wait, maybe I should make it one that's a little smaller. Or you could even, I could make myself shorter. You still have some time. So what if I got rid of my knees? It might look really weird, but I could make myself shorter so that I would fit. I think Emily won't mind. I'm just gonna make myself stick out. All right. So the cover part, I have a bigger sheet of paper for my cover. But it should fit. So what I did was I put this out straight, flat like this, and I made a line. And now I'm gonna cut this. You might just have the right size sheet of paper. But if you don't, that's how you can make one that is the right size. And then I fold this in half. Got my pop-up. And I want this to be the cover because sometimes it's not super attractive to see these holes here. So for the cover, I stick that in there. I want to glue this on. What I recommend doing is you have your glue stick and you do one side at a time. So you don't need to glue the entire thing. You can just use glue along the edges and maybe in here where we have our pop-ups. So I didn't glue in here because it's kind of wasteful. You don't really need to use all that glue. And then I press it down and really use my weight, my pressure. You can use your popsicle stick, bone folder if you have one. And so now we've done one side and it's really nicely in there. And then we have to do the other side. Same thing. You don't need to put glue everywhere, just really the edges and where your pop-ups are. press down. You can see I'm peeking out a little bit. And then you can also decorate the cover as well.